I got the notification just as I was stepping out of the shower. My phone buzzed 3 times in a row, a vibration I'd come to associate with fraud alerts. At first, I didn't think much of it, maybe some subscription I forgot to cancel. But when I picked up the phone and read the screen, my stomach turned cold. 987.43 charged at LX Hotel, Miami. I live in Seattle. I hadn't been to Miami in over a decade. I stared at the notification, waiting for it to make sense. Maybe it was a charge from an old trip that finally cleared. But no, that wouldn't cost almost $1,000. And I definitely hadn't stayed at any place called Lux Hotel. If you're into true stories with twists, make sure to subscribe right now. You won't believe how deep this one goes. I opened my banking app. The LUX hotel charge was there, pending, bold and unapologetic. Beneath it, 2 more, one for a high-end seafood restaurant, another for an Uber ride, both also in Miami. I felt a pressure build behind my eyes. This wasn't a billing error. Someone had my card, and they were having a good time with it. I tapped the freeze card option without hesitation. The screen turned gray with a small lock icon, and for a moment I felt a thin veil of relief settle over me. At least they couldn't spend more. But then the dread crept in. Whoever this was, they weren't just buying gas or groceries. These were bold purchases, luxury hotels, expensive meals. It didn't feel random. It felt like someone was pretending to be me. My mind raced. Had I lost my wallet? No. It was on my desk, card still inside. Had I used it somewhere sketchy? Unlikely. I was meticulous. Then how? How did they get it? I called the bank. 37 minutes of hold music, robotic menus, and being transferred 5 times later, I finally spoke to a human. She was polite but uninterested, reading from a script with mechanical sympathy. "We'll reverse the charges, sir. But you'll need to wait for the fraud department to follow up. They're experiencing high call volume." I asked her if she could tell me more about the charges, who made them, what ID was used, anything. "I'm afraid we can't release those details without a formal investigation." "What if I told you the person is using my full name to check into hotels?" I said, desperation creeping into my voice. There was a pause. "That's unusual," she admitted. "But again, sir, you'll need to wait for a fraud specialist." She hung up with the warmth of a closing elevator door. I sat on the floor, towel still wrapped around my waist, water dripping down my back. My heart thudded in slow, heavy beats. Someone was pretending to be me. Not just using my card, but being me. Booking rooms, leaving a trail. I Googled Lux Hotel Miami. It wasn't a chain, it was boutique, exclusive. I called them directly. The woman who answered was chipper, probably in her mid-20s. When I gave her my name, she went silent for a moment, then said, "Mr. Keene, are you calling from a different number than before?" My blood iced over. "Yes," I said. "Listen, I'm not the one staying there. Someone is using my identity." I'm sorry," she said. "I'm not sure I can talk to you about a guest without their permission. They're using my name, my credit card." "I understand, but without law enforcement involvement." I hung up. Everything about this felt wrong. I'd seen identity theft cases before, random charges, someone selling your info online. But this wasn't a digital thief in another country. This was someone who knew how to be me, and they were doing it in person. I couldn't stop thinking about that hotel clerk's question, "Are you calling from a different number than before?" That meant the person had called the hotel, spoken to them, maybe even checked in while I was asleep last night. Why Miami? Why now? I looked around my apartment like I was expecting someone to be watching me. The walls pressed in. I needed answers. I needed to understand what was happening before it spiraled even further. Freezing the card had stopped the spending, but what if it also stopped my only way of tracking them? The only thing I knew for sure was this: whoever had my identity wasn't done yet, and neither was I. I couldn't sleep that night. Every creak in my apartment felt like a footstep. Every shadow outside my window made my chest tighten. My brain ran in loops. How? Why? Who? I'm not rich. I'm not famous. But I work in cybersecurity. And if there's one thing I know, it's that not all data breaches are random. Sometimes they're targeted. At 3:14 a.m., I gave up trying to sleep and fired up my laptop. My inbox had no alerts, no phishing attempts, no login attempts flagged by Google or Apple. My password manager showed no new access, but the card was real, the charges were real, and someone had convinced the front desk of a luxury hotel that they were me. I checked the hotel again online. Their website was sleek, minimal. There was a contact form and I filled it with everything I had. My full legal name, a copy of my ID, the charge details. I ended the message with a plea. If you have any information or footage, please help me. Someone is impersonating me in your hotel. I didn't expect an answer, but to my surprise, they called me back that morning. A man with a smooth voice introduced himself as Daniel from Guest Services. "Mr. Keane, we received your inquiry," he said. "This is an unusual situation." "That's putting it lightly," I replied. "Did you check the reservation?" "Who made it?" "Well, the reservation was made online under your name, paid with a card matching that name. The guest provided ID at check-in. It matched as well. Can I see it?" "I'm afraid we can't release that. Privacy laws." "You don't understand. Someone stole my identity." "I understand your concern, but unless law enforcement is involved..." I cut him off. "Then I'm getting the police involved." He paused. "I can tell you the guest has already checked out about 6 hours ago." My hands curled into fists. "Did they leave anything behind? Did anyone see them?" "I'm not allowed to say more, sir. I really recommend going through proper channels." Click. I felt like I'd hit a wall. Every time I pushed forward, I was met with polite resistance. I opened a new browser tab and started reading about identity fraud involving in-person impersonation. Most cases were financial, racking up debt, taking out loans. But this felt more personal. The choices weren't just expensive, they were deliberate. And then I had a thought that made my skin crawl. What if they weren't trying to steal money? What if they were trying to be me? I searched for travel history associated with my frequent flyer account. Nothing new. My email had no confirmations from Miami. But if they had spoofed my ID, what else could they access? I called my cell provider and added two-factor authentication, biometric checks, every safeguard I could think of. I called the 3 major credit bureaus and locked down my reports. But every move felt like trying to plug a dam with a toothpick. Around noon, I got another call from the bank's fraud department. The agent sounded more serious than the first rep. His name was Ken. "Mr. Keane, we've reviewed your claim and noticed something odd," he said. "The person using your card presented themselves at the LUX hotel with full ID, matching your file." "So they're using a fake ID?" I asked. "Maybe." "But it passed their visual check." I leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "Hotels usually don't run ID through any national database. If it looks legit, they accept it. The staff confirmed it matched the name and photo on file." "Photo? You're saying it had my face?" "That's what they said." I felt the air leave my lungs. Ken continued. "We don't usually recommend this, but if you believe the person is still using your identity physically, it might be worth filing a police report directly and going in person to the hotel." "You think they're still there?" "We saw attempted activity at a nearby store this morning, blocked because of the freeze." It was a chance, a lead. And I couldn't shake the feeling that if I waited too long, this window would close. I checked my savings, booked a one-way flight to Miami, and packed a bag. As I zipped up my duffel, I looked around my apartment one last time. My home felt unfamiliar now, like it belonged to someone else. Maybe it did. Maybe I wasn't the only me anymore. The airport was crowded, chaotic. I moved through it in a daze, thinking about that hotel, about the ID with my face, about whoever had looked into a clerk's eyes and said, "I'm Aidan Keane," and the clerk had believed them. I boarded the flight with one goal in mind: find out who had done this and why. Miami hit me like a wall of steam. The air was thick and heavy, pressing against my skin the moment I stepped out of the airport. Palm trees swayed in a breeze I couldn't feel, and the sun glared down like it was trying to blind me. I hadn't been here in years, but nothing felt nostalgic. Everything felt off, foreign. I took a cab to the LUX hotel, It sat just a block from the beach, glass and white stone gleaming against the chaos of traffic and tourists. From the outside it looked sterile, pristine. But I knew something rotten had happened inside. At the front desk, I approached a woman in a navy blazer with a name tag that read, Kira. I tried to keep my voice steady. Hi, my name is Aidan Keene. I believe someone recently stayed here using my identity. Her polite smile froze. Sir, I remember speaking to you over the phone. That wasn't me, I said quickly. That was the person impersonating me. I need to know if they're still here. She tapped her keyboard. The guest under that name checked out this morning, around 9:45. Too late. I swallowed, the frustration rising in my throat. Did they leave anything behind? I wouldn't know, sir. Housekeeping would have cleared the room. Can I see the room? She looked conflicted. I really shouldn't. Please, I said, lowering my voice. They're using my ID, my card. I'm the victim here. Something in my tone must have registered. She hesitated, then handed me a key card. Room 913. Be quick. I didn't do this. I nodded, trying not to run toward the elevator. Room 913 sat at the far end of the 9th floor. I opened the door slowly, unsure of what I was expecting. It looked like any hotel room, neat, neutral, impersonal, but it smelled faintly of perfume I didn't recognize, floral, powdery, like someone had just left. There were no bags, no clothes, but by the bed, half hidden beneath the nightstand, was a red scarf. Silk, expensive, and definitely not mine. On the dresser sat a receipt, slightly crumpled, from a cafe 2 blocks away. The name on it said Aidan K. The signature scribbled beneath was eerily close to mine, just sloppy enough to pass casual inspection, and next to it was a plastic key card from the hotel itself. I turned it over in my hand, heart thudding. It was still warm. I needed to know what this person looked like. I needed confirmation that this wasn't just a clever hack, that this was someone physically pretending to be me. I took the elevator back down and found Kira still at the desk, now joined by a bored-looking young man. I approached him. Is there any way I can see the security footage from this floor? He didn't even look up. Only management can authorize that. Kira, I said gently, please. She bit her lip, then said, give me a second. She disappeared through a side door. 5 minutes later, she waved me in. The back office was cramped and full of monitors. She sat beside a security screen and clicked through the footage from that morning. We watched in silence as the timestamp read 9:37 a.m. A woman exited the room. She wore a cap and sunglasses. But the moment I saw her face just before she turned the corner, I froze. It was mine. The hair, the jawline, even the faint scar on the brow from a childhood fall. It wasn't a resemblance. It was a copy. If I hadn't known I was in Seattle that day, I'd have sworn it was me walking down that hallway. Kira looked between me and the screen. Is that your twin? No, I whispered. I don't have a twin. She closed the footage and stood up. I'm sorry. That's all I can show you. I walked out of the hotel, into the sticky heat, stunned. A copy of me had just walked out that door hours ago, wearing my name, carrying my face, buying coffee like they had every right to. This wasn't fraud, it wasn't a scam, it was something else. Something I couldn't name yet. I stood on the sidewalk, gripping the scarf in my pocket, like it could anchor me to reality. My thoughts spiraled. This wasn't just identity theft. This was identity replacement. And I was already a few steps behind. I didn't go back to my hotel that night. I couldn't. I sat in a diner across from LUX with cold eggs on my plate and the scarf in my hand, staring out the window like the woman would suddenly reappear and confess everything. But she didn't. And I was left with one question looping endlessly in my head. Who was she? The receipt from the cafe was time-stamped 20 minutes before checkout. I walked there the next morning, retracing her steps. The place was small, modern, with too many mirrors and not enough light. I asked the barista if she remembered a woman, same face as mine, red scarf, probably alone. She didn't even blink. Yeah. You were here yesterday. No, I said. That wasn't me. The barista tilted her head. Well, she paid with a card that said your name. Do you have cameras? She frowned. Are you the police? I showed her my ID. I'm the person being impersonated. Reluctantly, she took me to a manager who brought up the footage, and there she was again, wearing the same sunglasses, hair pulled back, looking like she belonged in my skin. She ordered confidently, smiled, even flirted with the cashier. Her mannerisms weren't robotic, they were fluid, natural. Like she'd been living my life longer than I had. I asked for a copy of the video. The manager refused. I didn't push. I already had her image seared into my memory. The receipt listed her payment method, a card tied to a rental car agency. I called them next, pretending to confirm a reservation. They asked for my license and last 4 digits of the card. I gave both. The reservation was completed yesterday, the man on the phone said. Pickup location, Coral Way, returned this morning. Do you have the renter's ID on file? We do, but I can't release it without a subpoena. Can you at least tell me what kind of ID they used? Driver's license, he said. Washington State, and they looked exactly like you. I closed my eyes. Did they say where they were going? No, sir, just a standard 2-day rental. I was chasing someone who moved like a ghost. No trail, no name, just mine. Back in my hotel room, I laid everything out on the bed. The scarf, the receipt, the key card. I examined the signature again. It was disturbingly close to my own. Too close to be forged by guesswork. Something deeper was happening. I went through my old accounts. Socials, email, subscriptions, nothing obvious. Then I checked my security questions. One of them had been changed. I'd used, "What was the name of your first pet?" for years. Now it asked, "Where did you go to elementary school?" And the answer field was blank. I tried logging into my secondary email, the one I hadn't touched since college. Password incorrect. I clicked Forgot Password, but the recovery address was no longer mine. My chest tightened. Whoever she wasn't just pretending to be me. She was rewriting me, claiming pieces of my past I hadn't looked at in years, and she knew enough to bypass answers I'd forgotten I even gave. That night, I opened a box I hadn't touched in years, an old portable drive I brought for backup. Inside were scanned documents, photos, journals. I dug through high school memories looking for anything, and that's when I saw her. A yearbook photo. Junior year, back row, same face, different name. Amelia Hart. She'd been quiet, sat near me in computer class, once asked if I could help her set up her email encryption. I barely remembered her, but her photo stared back with an intensity that chilled me now. She had the same eyes, the same smirk, and she was watching me even back then. I looked her up online. No social profiles, no recent mentions, but one tagged photo in a nightclub's gallery popped up under her old username. Location, Miami, 3 months ago. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. This wasn't just some stranger copying me. This was someone I'd crossed paths with long ago, someone who knew me, maybe admired me, maybe envied me, and now she was trying to become me. I wasn't sure how deep this went, but if I wanted to reclaim my identity, I had to find her, not just to stop her, but to understand why she'd chosen me. I didn't remember much about Amelia Hart, but the more I thought about her, the more certain I became that she hadn't just been a background presence. She'd watched me. Not like a friend, not even like a stalker, more like someone studying a role they were about to play. I dug through more old files, scanned yearbooks, chat logs, even my dusty college folder. Amelia had never added me on social media, but I remembered once seeing her post a photo of us, me helping her in class, blurry, but unmistakably real. I hadn't paid attention then. Now it felt like a warning I hadn't known to read. I started searching her name online, trying variations, usernames she might have used. One popped up on a forum about digital privacy, an old post offering tips on erasing online footprints. Her handle was AimERT, and the post was dated 7 years ago. It ended with a line that made my skin crawl. "You are not who you think you are until you choose to be." It wasn't proof, but it was enough for me to believe she'd been planning something long before now. I looked back at the nightclub tag. She'd been in Miami just months ago. I zoomed in on the background of the photo, noting the neon sign behind her, La Ruta. A quick search told me it was still open, tucked away in a side street near Wynwood. I went there that night. The bouncer didn't even glance at my ID. Inside, the music was too loud, the lights too low. I showed the photo to the bartender, who looked at it and gave a tired nod. Yeah, she's been here a few times, always alone, sits at the end of the bar, real quiet. Do you remember when she was last here? He thought for a moment. Maybe a week ago? Ordered something weird, tequila and soda water. Did she say anything, a name? She gave your name. Said she was Aiden. My pulse ticked faster. Anything else? He shrugged. Seemed like she was waiting for someone who never showed. She left pissed, that's all I got. Outside, the night air did nothing to cool my nerves. Amelia, or whoever she was now, wasn't just copying me. She was inserting herself into my story, dropping breadcrumbs only I would recognize. This wasn't random, it was deliberate, personal. The next morning I went to the local police precinct and filed a report. I told them everything. The stolen identity, the fake ID, the charges, the sightings. The officer who took my statement was polite but skeptical. She has your face. Yes. You have any proof? I have video, witnesses, photos. But no full name, current address, or active threat. She's impersonating me. Isn't that enough? He glanced at my license again. Look, sir, we'll log the report, but unless she commits a new crime or you're in immediate danger, there's not much we can do. I left the station more frustrated than before. I wasn't being taken seriously, and worse, I couldn't blame them. I sounded insane. The only thing I had left was instinct, and that told me she wasn't far. I visited every location tied to the charges. The hotel, the cafe, the car rental. Everyone remembered her. No one knew where she went next. But one thing became clear. She was staying ahead of me by hours, maybe less, watching me follow her, almost guiding me. She wasn't running, she was playing. That night I sat in my hotel room, staring at my reflection. I pressed my fingertips to my face, same eyes, same mouth, same small scar on the left temple. And I whispered out loud, "What do you want from me?" I didn't expect an answer, but my phone buzzed. A blocked number. I hesitated, then answered. Silence. Then a voice. Still chasing ghosts, Aiden? It was my voice. Not a recording. Not distorted. My exact voice, calm and controlled. I froze. Who are you? You already know, you just don't want to admit it. My mouth was dry. Why me? Because you wasted it. What? The life, the name, the face, you sleepwalked through it. I'm just doing it better. The line went dead. I stared at the screen, heart thudding. My thoughts collapsed into noise. She wasn't done. She was watching me, closer than I'd realized. And the worst part, she might be right. I couldn't sleep after that call. Her voice kept echoing in my mind, my voice taunting me through the static. She wasn't afraid. She wanted me to hear her, to feel her confidence, to know she was always one move ahead. I spent hours rewatching the footage from the cafe and the hotel, zooming in on every frame like it held a hidden clue. But the answer kept slipping past logic. She looked too much like me, moved too naturally. No disguise could do that. Either she was a genius or she was something else entirely. By morning, I realized I'd made a mistake. I had frozen the card too soon. If I wanted to trace her movements, see where she went next, I needed the charges to continue. I needed a trail. The moment I froze it, I'd cut the only link between us. That card was the tether she was using to stay close, and I had severed it. I opened the bank app and hesitated. Every warning screamed not to do it. But then I imagined her laughing, slipping through city streets while I sat paralyzed. So I unpaused the card. Within 40 minutes, I got a notification. 426:30. Coastal Breeze Bungalows, Key West. It hit like a punch. She hadn't gone far. Just south. And she was still using my name. I booked a rental car and left Miami within the hour. The highway narrowed as I drove down through the Keys, islands floating in sunlight and ocean. The farther I went, the more the world around me faded. No skyscrapers, no crowd, just road and silence and the sound of tires eating up distance. By the time I reached Key West, the sun was starting to dip. The streets were tight and colorful, tourists meandering through art shops and beach bars. I followed the address on the transaction. The bungalows sat off a side street, white fencing, palm trees, little porches with faded hammocks swaying in the wind. I parked across the street and watched. Unit 7, her name, my name, was on the guest board outside the office. She was inside. I sat in the car, palms sweating, heart racing. I didn't know what I was going to do. Knock on the door, call the police again, demand she return my life? I didn't even know what she'd taken. Not really. For almost an hour, I didn't move. I just stared at the windows, the curtains, the flickering light from inside. Then I saw her shadow cross the room. Same build, same stride. It rattled me. She was living like she belonged there, like she'd done this 100 times. I pulled out my phone and started recording, my voice explaining everything, pointing to the address, the name, the date, just in case I disappeared next. I wasn't being dramatic. At this point, I didn't know what she was capable of. I walked up to the porch slowly, my breath shallow. The wood creaked underfoot. I knocked. A pause, then the door opened, and there she was, wearing my face, standing in my clothes, an old hoodie I thought I'd lost months ago. Her eyes met mine and widened with delight, not surprise. "Took you long enough?" she said. I couldn't speak. She smiled, tilting her head. "You're not as fast as I remember." "What the hell are you?" I finally managed. She stepped aside, gesturing for me to enter. "You should come in. It's time we talked." But I didn't move. My legs were locked in place. I couldn't tell if I was staring at a threat or a mirror. She laughed, my laugh, and leaned against the doorframe. "You're afraid of me," she said, "but you don't even know why yet." My voice came out strained. "You're not me." She raised an eyebrow. "Aren't I?" Before I could respond, she shut the door with a soft click. I stood there, stunned, heart pounding against my ribs. I had seen her, spoken to her, and I still had no answers, only more questions. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car across from the bungalow, staring at the door that had just closed in my face. I replayed every second of our brief conversation. Her posture, her tone, the way she called me slow, like we shared a past I couldn't remember. I watched the lights flicker through the blinds for hours until they finally went dark. I told myself I should call someone, police, private security, anyone. But how do you explain that the person you're chasing is you? The next morning I knocked again. This time she let me in. The room was clean, minimal, unnervingly organized. A suitcase lay open on the bed with folded clothes I recognized, some of them missing from my own closet back in Seattle. She poured coffee into 2 mugs, like this was a normal reunion. "You don't remember, do you?" she asked, handing me a cup. "Remember what?" She sat down across from me, legs crossed, face calm. "The trial, the signatures, the waiver you didn't read. What trial?" She smiled like I was a child. "You were part of it, whether you knew it or not." I stayed standing, hands clenched. "You stole my life." "No," she said. "I reclaimed it. That's not how this works. It is when you were just a prototype." Her words hit me like a slap. I didn't respond. Couldn't. She took a slow sip. "You think you're the original." "But they made backups, tested versions, stored memories like files. You were activated early, accidentally." My voice cracked. "That's not true. I have your scars, Aiden, your dreams, your guilt. Tell me, do you remember your mother's handwriting?" I blinked. She leaned forward. She dotted her eyes with tiny circles. I still see it when I close my eyes. "You don't, do you?" I shook my head. "I remember things you've forgotten because you were only meant to run part of the program." I backed away, heart racing. "You're insane." She didn't argue, just watched me. "You ever wonder why you're always tired? Why your memory feels foggy? Why some days feel like copies of others? She stood now, inching closer. Because you were never finished. Just released too soon. No. That's not possible. Then explain why we're identical, why I can pass as you better than you can. I couldn't. My mind rebelled against it, but part of me, a terrified, quiet part, had already begun to wonder. She turned to the suitcase and pulled out a tablet, swiped through files, opened a video. It showed a sterile room, a man in a lab coat speaking directly to the camera. Test subject A keen prototype, preliminary memory stack upload complete. She paused the clip. Want to watch the rest? I couldn't breathe. Where did you get this? From the same place you came from. She let that hang in the air. Then she looked at me, really looked at me. I'm not your enemy, Aiden. I just want what was promised. And what's that? She stepped closer until we were almost nose to nose. A life. Silence. Then, softer. You've been wasting it. Waking up, working, sleeping, nothing else. I made it matter. I wanted to scream, to deny everything. But all I could feel was the weight of something vast and invisible pressing down on me. So what now? I asked. You keep pretending to be me until I disappear. She shook her head. You already did. I turned and left, but I didn't go far. I sat on the curb, staring at the ocean. She was wrong. She had part of me, maybe more than I wanted to admit, but not all. Not the anger, not the fear, not the desperate will to fight. I wasn't finished. And if I had to prove that, I would, no matter what it cost. I drove away from the bungalow with no idea where I was going. The road curved through Key West, past color-soaked shops and sunburned tourists, but all I could see was her face, my face, calm, assured, claiming a truth I couldn't escape. You already disappeared, she'd said. No, not yet, but she was trying to make it true. I pulled over near a beach, stepped out, and tried to breathe. The salt air didn't help. My phone buzzed. A friend from work, Ryan, finally returned one of my messages. Hey man, got your voicemail. Weird stuff. Are you okay? HR said you resigned. That can't be right. I froze. I hadn't resigned. I logged into my company portal, but my access was revoked. My email account returned an error. My security badge had been deactivated. I called IT. Got nothing but a generic line and hold music. She was erasing me bit by bit. First the charges, then the identity. Now my job. I raced back to my hotel and opened my laptop. Gmail, locked. Facebook, gone. Instagram, wiped. Even my online backup drives showed access from unfamiliar IPs. She was inside everything, rewriting the version of me that existed to the world. I tried calling friends. One picked up and asked, "Didn't you say you were moving to Florida?" "No," I said. "I'm still in Seattle." The line went quiet. "You okay?" But I wasn't. Not even close. I checked my credit report. New applications filed under my name. I called the bureaus, but I couldn't verify my identity. Not anymore. The answers didn't match. The agent said, "Sir, according to our records, you already filed a fraud claim this morning." She was always one step ahead. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. There were dark circles under my eyes. A twitch in my left cheek I hadn't noticed before. My own face looked foreign now. That's when the knock came. I froze. 3 slow taps. I looked through the peephole. Empty hallway. But then a voice came through the door, quiet and steady. "You should stop fighting this. They won't believe you. You know that." Her voice. I didn't respond. I grabbed my bag, left through the back stairwell, and ran. I found a coffee shop with decent Wi-Fi and opened a burner account. I uploaded every photo, every file, every audio clip I had, screenshots of charges, the receipt, the scarf, even a screen recording of our hotel room conversation. Then I called the police again. This time I wasn't calm. "She's here. She's pretending to be me. I have proof. You need to come now." They took my statement again, promised to send a unit. No one showed up. I waited 2 hours. Eventually, I realized the obvious. She'd gotten to them too. I bought a burner phone, left my original behind. Then I rented another car under a new name, one I'd never used. tied to an old college identity I'd set up for testing purposes. It still worked. She hadn't found that one yet. I checked the map. There was only one direction left to go. North, fast. I hit the road. Driving gave me a strange calm. The endless stretch of pavement felt like the only honest thing left. I was a ghost now. No home, no job, no name. Just a fading memory of who I used to be. At a gas station, I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror behind the counter, and I hesitated, because for a split second I thought I saw her standing there, smiling. I blinked. Gone. The paranoia was sinking in, but was it paranoia if it was true? I drove through the night, radio off, phone off, head spinning. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew what I had to do next. Find the root, the beginning, the first crack where this all started. Because if I didn't, she wouldn't just replace me in the world's eyes. She'd replace me in my own mind. And then there'd be no one left to fight back. I hadn't thought about the old drive in years. It was a clunky silver portable unit I kept taped under my desk at my parents' house back in Olympia. Long before cloud storage was a thing, I'd backed up everything important on it. Projects, passwords, contracts, old emails. When I got into cybersecurity, paranoia came with the territory. So I made physical backups, hidden ones. Now it might be the only part of my life she hadn't reached. I drove straight through the night. No music, no distractions. I stopped only once for gas and to switch vehicles at a self-rental lot, paying in cash. Every step was careful, deliberate. I didn't use my name, not even in my thoughts. I was a blank slate, a shadow retracing its own footsteps. I reached my childhood home just after dawn. My parents had moved out years ago, but the place had been sold to a friend of theirs, who let me in without asking questions. I went straight to my old room, peeled back the loose panel under the desk, and pulled out the drive. It was still there, untouched. I booted up an old laptop and connected it. The screen blinked once, then it opened. Folders bloomed before me like forgotten branches of memory. College, notes, crypto, docs. One folder stood out, Neurogen. I didn't recognize the name, but inside were documents dated nearly 10 years back. PDFs, consent forms, spreadsheets, and then a folder titled Phase 0 AK. My initials. I opened it. There were videos, grainy footage of a white room, a man in a lab coat, files opened on a monitor, voice logs, test results, notes. The first video started with a timestamp and a title, Subject AK. Session 3. A man sat across from a younger version of me. "Let's begin," he said. "Do you remember the last dream you had?" I watched in stunned silence as my face answered. Yes. It was the hallway again, except this time the door opened. Another clip, a scan of a signature, mine, on a form labeled Neurogen Identity Preservation Consent Agreement. I read it slowly. The participant acknowledges that a replica memory structure may be derived from base cognition for research or crisis redundancy scenarios. Replica. Redundancy. Clone. I leaned back, blood pounding in my ears. They had copied me, not metaphorically, not digitally. They'd taken memories, mannerisms, everything I thought made me who I was, and used it to build something else. The final document was a termination notice. The project was shut down, incomplete, but not before at least one prototype had been activated. Me or her or both. It didn't say. One last log sat at the bottom of the folder. An email draft never sent, from the lead researcher. To internal oversight team. Subject, Phase 0 results. Subject AK's replica exceeded baseline cognition thresholds. Unexpected identity drift occurred in both original and clone. Suggest immediate compartmentalization. Loss of cognitive tether is increasing. Self-awareness in the clone presents significant risk. The email ended with one chilling sentence. We don't know which version is dominant anymore. My chest was tight. My mind struggled to hold the truth. I wasn't hacked. I wasn't targeted. I was engineered. Every memory I trusted, every reaction I thought was instinct, it could have been programming, procedure. And the worst part, I didn't know if I was the first or the copy. Suddenly, everything made sense. The confusion, the déjà vu, the feeling that my life had started without a clear beginning. She'd known all along. I closed the laptop. There was only one conclusion left to draw. If we were both born from the same mind, then our identities had always been overlapping. That's why she moved like me, thought like me, knew what I'd do before I did. We were mirrors chasing each other through fog, and now it wasn't about proving who was real. It was about who would remain. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed with the laptop closed, the old drive still humming beside me. My hands trembled, not from fear but from clarity. For the first time, I saw the full shape of what this was. Not theft. Not coincidence. A designed collision between two halves of the same origin. I had a choice to make, not between truth and lie. That line had been erased a long time ago, but between erasure and control. She wanted to overwrite me, not through violence, but through presence. She'd replace me by living better, smoother, with fewer doubts and more confidence. She was already winning. Unless I took it all away. I drove east until I found a motel on the edge of nowhere, paid cash, left no name. I opened a new account under credentials buried so deep, not even the old version of me remembered them. I uploaded everything, the documents, the footage, the Neurogen logs. Then I set up a digital trap, an alert tied to my name. If she used it again, it would ping. A single trace would be enough. 2 days later, it lit up. A driver's license renewal flagged in a DMV office outside Atlanta. She was still using my name. I called the office, gave them a heads up. They said she'd left already, but it didn't matter. I sent her an anonymous message. They flagged you, better be careful. No reply. So I sent another. You wanted a life. You got it. But you can't have mine anymore. Still nothing. Then 2 nights later, a burner number called. She didn't speak right away. Finally, she said, "You really think you can scare me off?" "No," I said, "but I can make you choose." Silence. I continued, "You're better at being me. That's what you believe, right? Then go live it. Just not in my shadow. Start fresh. You're not a replica anymore. You're your own." Her voice was calm. "Why would I leave a life that already works?" "Because if you don't," I said, "I disappear. And then you're not a better version. You're a murderer." Another pause. Then, "I never wanted to destroy you." "You almost did." More silence. Then she asked softly, "What would you do if our places were reversed?" I didn't hesitate. I'd walk away. Because if I had the power to live without stealing someone else's skin, I'd take it. She didn't answer, and the line went dead. I didn't hear from her again. Over the next few weeks, I dismantled everything tied to my old life. Accounts deleted, paper trails burned, names changed. I moved west under a new identity, not to run, but to restart, to exist outside the shadow of either version. I never saw her again, but sometimes I feel her, in crowded spaces, reflected briefly in windows, a flicker of familiarity in a stranger's face. I'll glance and she's gone. But the feeling lingers, and I wonder, if I'm the copy and she's the original, or if the truth stopped mattering the moment we diverged, because now we're not the same, we've made different choices, lived different lives. She chose control, I chose freedom. So if you're still out there, Amelia, or Aiden, or whoever you've become, I hope you made peace with your version. I did. And if you, the one watching, made it this far, thank you. Stories like these aren't always told, but they matter, because identity isn't just what we remember, it's what we fight for. If this story shook you, subscribe for more like it. And click the next video on your screen to hear how I escaped a federal manhunt with zero memory of it.